Inside
your bedroom, we stopped counting the days, lost in the rhythm.
Hi, hello. My name is Amy Prokopis, and I am an author of paranormal romance and romantasy books, always with a little spice. Welcome to my channel. Welcome back to those of you who are returning, and welcome in to those of you who are new. If you are an author and you are curious about the title of this video, let me know in the comments below. If you are a returning Amy Prokopis watcher, let me know in the comments. Feel free to like and subscribe so that we can stay in touch and hang out, because I post videos every Wednesday. I post vlog content where you see the day in my life every week on Sundays. So welcome in. I am glad to have you. And yeah, let's get into this video. The whole reason you clicked on the video. Whew, I always ramble in intros. Holy, forgive me. I have been writing a very, very long time, and we're going to go into the details of everything that kind of got me here to this point. But first, the reason I'm even recording this video, last week on October 1st, I published my 10th book. It is book 2 in my Curse of Wings series, which is a spicy vampire romance. I will stick all of that up here. There are 2 of them in the series. I think there will be 4 total in the whole series when we're all said and done. It is a different series than anything I had written before up to this point, and I am really, really proud of it. It came out of a transitionary period for me personally and also in my author life, and I'm really proud of it. And so the fact that book 2 after book 1 did so well for me, the fact that book 2 ended up being my 10th book, which is a pretty nice milestone. To publish 10 books in your life is kind of crazy that's not something a lot of people do. And so I wanted to take a step back and just reflect on my career at this point, and also just take a moment to kind of give myself a pat on the back and celebrate that. Because like I just said, not everybody publishes a book at all, let alone 10 of them. So I am so proud of myself, and I just wanted to celebrate with you guys and kind of share my career to this point, but also 10 things that I've learned along the way, 10 lessons I learned along the way. So stay tuned, because we'll get into the 10 things I learned at the end. So don't go anywhere. I said I have a long history with writing, and I really do. I started when, I was like kindergarten, first grade, doing comic strips essentially, because I didn't know a lot of words. I didn't know a ton of words. And so I would insert the ones I did know into the photos to explain them. And I would write or draw out the scenes, and they told a story. And then I would pass this comic strip around to my family members and friends. And it was the book that I wrote. That is what I told them. It was never just like a picture. It was a book. And I would tell people, this is my story. Here's the story. Here's what it's about. And I would tell everybody that would listen, essentially. And as I grew, those comic strips started to get more words in them. And then it was picture books where it was mostly words and then pictures. And then slowly it just became words. By the time I was like in middle school, it became words. But before middle school, it wasn't until I was about 7 or 8 years old and reading became a really big part of school. About that time, like between first and like 4th grade, I would say, reading became a huge part of what you do and practice every day. And there were all these reading challenges. The Scholastic Book Fair was my jam. I think we all could agree on that, if you're a reader at all. And that is when I started to realize, when people at school started to talk about careers and things you might want to do when you grow up. And that was when I first heard the word author, was doing like book reports and actually reading books in school. And as soon as I knew that there were people who wrote books and that was their job, that's what they did, I immediately said, that is what I want to do. And that answer never changed. I always wanted to be an author. I wanted to be an author Olympic track star. I wanted to be an author teacher. I wanted to be an author, but author was always plan A. It was always in the forefront of my mind, despite people telling me that doing a creative job like that was, one, really difficult, and two, slim chances to do full time. I already knew what I was up against even when I was little, but that is what I had chosen to do. And so that is what I then kind of built my world around, was this desire to be an author. So for me, becoming an author started with getting educated in it. Everybody in my family are teachers. I'm a great big teacher family. That is my background. That's why I ended up becoming a teacher. We will get to that later. But education is super important to my family. And so therefore it's very important to me. And so the first step to me to being the best author I could be and creating an actual career out of this was to get educated in it. And so I really focused on my English classes in school and my artistic classes, especially. Liberal arts was something I really put a lot of work into and time into. Like watching movies was always really fun to me because I liked the story structure within movies. I kind of studied that and picked that apart when I was young. And then through high school, just doing the best I could in my English classes. I struggled a lot in school. I have ADHD, and so I just struggled to retain information in the traditional way that school tends to be set up. And so I struggled grade-wise. But I learned a lot and I was smart. I just could not explain that in the same way a lot of people could. I would show it. And I did a lot of that through creative methods like storytelling. And so I thrived in English. So I pushed myself to take advanced classes. I started taking college English as a junior in high school. I put all kinds of time and energy into it. And then I went off to college with an English major. Even though people asked me over and over, what are you going to do with that? Are you going to be a teacher? And I said, no, I'm not going to be a teacher. I'm going to be an author. And people still kind of scoffed and rolled their eyes at me. But I went to college, got the English degree, my English bachelor's. I took all of the creative writing classes that I could. I was probably really close to having a minor in creative writing and just didn't file for it because I took just about every one of them. But I actually graduated with a degree in English and a minor in German. And after that, I had graduated. I needed to figure out what to do. Things were kind of precarious a little bit in my personal life. All my friends were moving to different places, so my social circle had shrunk a little bit that was directly around me. And a job opportunity pretty much just like fell in my lap and was offered to me to teach German at the high school I grew up at, and my family was there, so I was going to have a lot of support around, and I was still trying to figure out the next step in this author thing because I had started to query all through middle school and high school. I had written this series. It started out as a 6-book young adult series, and what I would do was rewrite the book, and I basically was using it to get better and better. And with each draft I did, however, what I didn't realize until I was in late college and then graduated out to this time in my life with my first job, what I realized I was doing was I was just rewriting the book. I was not really editing it. I was not spending time making what was already there better. I was just completely rewriting the story. And so when I got my first job, it was not exactly what I wanted and saw for myself. I was hoping to be closer to that full-time author life at this point, or at least have a traditional book deal. I had started to query this book that I had been writing over and over and over forever and ever, and nothing was taking off. And because I was brand new in the teaching world, which requires a whole lot of work, I could go on a whole other talk about teaching, but I had to pause and slow down the writing stuff for a little bit just so I could get my feet underneath me with the day job of teaching. So I stopped querying the 6 that then became 4 books series, and I realized very quickly that what I needed to do was actually sit down and edit the draft of book 1 that I had. I'd written this story over and over so many times. I knew it so well. Very little of the story had changed. I was just rewriting it to rewrite it because at that time in my life, I didn't fully understand what editing a novel looked like. It is quite different than just like editing a term paper. And so when I took my step back, I realized, okay, 1, I need to edit this book, not rewrite it again. I need to edit it. 2, I need to stop querying it also for editors, or not editors, agents. And 3, once I get myself used to this day job, I will have more time as a result to then focus on the writing with this book after I've edited it and then start pitching it. So that's what I did. I took a step back. I printed out my draft and I actually did. I edited it. I went through with red pen. I edited it like twice, front to back. I have the early drafts still in my closet. I still have them all signed and dated and everything with when I edited them. So I edited the books and I did that in the evenings, slowly but surely as I was teaching. But again, my personal life got a little crazy. I met somebody very special who I then married not long after, like a year after. Then we got a house, moved into a new house. Life was super crazy. I was slowly working on this project. I decided to shelve that book because all said and done, I just didn't see it in the market at the time. I didn't see it being super profitable in the market at the time that I was writing that. And I also felt so close to this story, but by this point that I was getting really picky about the people I wanted to work with on this story, the agent I wanted to work with. And I had done so much research into the world of traditional publishing. And I knew that you end up working pretty collaboratively sometimes. And this story was just so important to my development as an author that I realized after those first few years of teaching, I realized maybe this is not the book that I published. Maybe this was just the book that I experiment with. It's the one I learned how to write front to back, this whole gigantic series, and then edited down and learned how to edit with this series. Maybe this book is just for me, and maybe it just sits until the timing's right. And if the market is ready for this book, maybe we publish it, and then maybe we never do. And these characters and the story is just for me. And so I put it on the shelf, and then a little bit more time went by as I moved into teaching a different subject. I moved from German to then teaching a couple different subjects. One year I taught several subjects at once, and I was not happy, to be entirely honest. I was very happy because I was married to an amazing, very supportive man. I planned to become an author. That was still a gigantic dream of mine, but I was so exhausted every day by this job that just did not fit the long-term goal for myself. It was fulfilling in some ways, but in order for it to be fulfilling, it was draining my personal energy. It was taking joy out of my free time to put the effort in to feel like I was doing well at this job. And so I went to therapy. I'm a huge proponent, obviously, of therapy. And I did a lot of soul searching and talking about my goals, my dreams, got my head straight as far as what I wanted to see myself in the long term. And I realized I needed to move out of this environment and into a different one. And a career path I had always considered was psychology. And so I went back to school and I got a master's in school counseling, and I moved into school counseling at the school I worked at instead of teaching. And it took a lot of pressure off because even though the stakes were higher for some of the work I was doing, some of the workload was easier to manage. And I honestly think it was because I had a bit more autonomy. I did work as a team, but a lot of the work that I was doing was on my own time. which was nice because I could create my own schedule and work around what I wanted as far as writing time and carve that out and protect that time. So it was better. It allowed me to start writing, and I graduated from my school counseling program the same year. One, I was pregnant, so there was no writing happening that particular year. I told myself, this is a transition year. I'm pregnant. I'm finishing my program. Then I'm going to move into this new career. I'm going to move into school counseling next year. I'm going to have a little extra time on my hands. I'll be home with this baby for a while. And then as soon as I had my son, a week later, 2020, the pandemic shut everything down. So here I am at home with this newborn. And at first it was just me and the newborn. And then it was me, the newborn, and my husband because school's shut down. So he's working from home. And I did a lot of reflection, like a lot of us do, and a lot of us did during the pandemic. So I kind of refer to my very first book published as sort of my like banana bread project, because everyone was learning how to make banana bread, it seemed like, during the pandemic. So I decided, as I was sitting at home, busy with like keeping busy all day with a newborn, getting ready to launch into this new career this next school year as a school counselor, I realized that the timing is never going to be right. And that's the truth for anything. And honestly, what made me realize that was having my son, because he was not planned. We had all of our ducks in a row. My husband and I are such planners. And so we stick to everything to a T. We set tasks and we accomplish goals. And that is what we do. We're go-getters and self-starters. And that is what we had been doing. And then I found out I was pregnant. And at first it kind of like put a screeching halt to things with our plans of like going back to school and finding new roles and kind of working up the ladder at school and such. But you adapt, and we were very happy to have him immediately. It was just a little bit of a surprise. And having him and the pandemic hitting made me realize that the timing for anything is never going to be perfect. But if you want to do something bad enough, you will figure out how to make it work for you. And that is exactly how I tell people that I get things done. When people ask me, how do I find the time to write and do all the things? And the truth is, if you really want to do something bad enough, you will figure out how to make it happen, even if you're doing 30 minutes a day. Even if I'm writing 30 minutes a day, and that is what I started with, is something similar to that, you will figure out how to make it work. And that is what I did. So pandemic hits, everybody goes back to school the next year. I'm a counselor. Well, I'm not a counselor quite yet. I think I was still finishing school going into the counseling role. So I had just finished the school counseling program, and I had a teaching job that was going to allow me to help with the counseling department so that the next year I could just kind of step into the role. So pandemic hit, and as a lot of things were that first year, schools were constantly shut down, open, shut down. It made things really strange. I did a lot of virtual teaching that year, and because of that schedule and the flexibility that things like virtual allowed for me, I was so caught up on things and so on top of my game. I didn't have school anymore, and I had my mom and dad helping with our son. I was able to write a lot. I wrote the first draft of The Arena, this book. I wrote the first draft of this book really quickly, and then because I had already learned how to edit, I went through several rounds of editing this book into perfection. And then I started, that's when I decided this is going to be my test into self-publishing, because at that point I had already told myself, if you really want something, you'll figure out how to do it. I had pitched it a couple of times to some people after I had done a round of edits, and I got the same responses. people were really interested in the book. They enjoyed it. I even sent a full draft of it to somebody who thought it was good, but the responses were basically that I have other things on my I'm representing other books right now. I don't have the space. And I found that time and time again. And when I would go and I would do my due diligence and I was doing my research on all of the agents to see who I fit with, I was finding out that the truth is that and the publishing world is also a business. And when people can represent and get published bigger name authors or celebrities that want to have a memoir, they're going to push the things that make money. And sometimes the name makes money. And I was a little itty bitty fish in a gigantic sea trying to cut through the noise. And the more I started to look at the differences in publishing, self-publishing, traditional publishing, I started to realize that I really valued autonomy. And I've been a self-starter. I really wanted to have a lot of involvement in the process. And I enjoy all of the creative elements that go along with publishing, like the cover design, formatting. I love all of that. And I decided, let's try self-publishing. This is a sci-fi book, which is completely different than anything I write now and anything I've ever written. And I decided, let's use it to test the waters. I can always change my mind and go back. Since I self-publish, I can always unpublish. And so I decided to self-publish The Arena. And I learned a lot along the way. It took me a long time. Originally, the book was going to come out in 2020 in the fall. And I had everything set up to do that. Except something I haven't actually talked much about online is I got scammed. So everything was ready to be done in the fall. I had the book edited by an amazing editor. It was done. I did the interior formatting myself using vellum for the very first time. I was very pleased with it. And all I needed was to finish the cover design, but I got scammed. I used a cover designer from Fiverr, and I put a little bit too much trust in this person, and I ended up paying for work that was not received, which was very frustrating, very upsetting. I really kicked myself for that, and it almost ruined the whole experience for me. But I decided I had a really good experience on Readsy with my editor, so I used Readsy to find a cover designer, and that's how I got the cover for The Arena, got it all finished, and I published it in 2021. I believe it was March, in the spring. So it was a really rocky start to publishing my first book, but I found that I actually really enjoyed the process of publishing. I didn't think I would enjoy the business side nearly as much because I like to create, I like to write. I don't like tracking numbers and statistics and all of those details, or at least I thought I wouldn't, but I found out with The Arena that I did. And so when this idea months before had come to me for kind of a supernatural demon hunter series, I decided to go ahead and start writing it, and it came very quickly. And that series for the next year was the Guardians of the Sixth Gate series, and that was the very first completed series I published. And publishing a series is very different than a standalone. I learned that very quickly. I love the process of writing in a series. I knew that very early on. Even when I was a kid, I didn't like to write a one-off. All of my characters would cross over and there would be multiple books. That's just the way that I write. It's the way I storytell, and I still do. And I still love that kind of method of telling stories. And so publishing my first completed series taught me a lot. For instance, the long run pays off. I was very frustrated publishing this series, especially going into book 2, publishing Shade of the Shadowlands, because it did not perform nearly as well as book 1. And I started to get really nervous. I had a lot of nights where I thought, this author thing is never going to happen. Somehow I'm getting worse. And the truth was, that wasn't the case. And I'm really glad I stuck with my gut and published the whole series like I really wanted to, and just believed in myself and published it, because as soon as that third book dropped and the series was complete, it took off. Not took off, but it did really well. And then it all paid off in the long run. But the truth is that a lot of people binge things, and a lot of people don't pick up a series unless it is finished. And so now that I know that, I can adjust my expectations, and I can also know that a second book in a series may not do nearly as well as the first, for one, because it is book one, but also because people are sitting waiting on the completed series to read all of it at once. And that's been the case for me since, with other projects like Winter Witches, that series, and other things. As soon as I complete more of the story, it starts to do a whole lot better. So adjusting my expectations was something I learned a lot through publishing that trilogy. And it also really set the path for Amy Prokopis Publishing, because by the end of publishing that series, when the characters graduated and went off into college, that is when I realized I don't think I want to write YA anymore, which was what I originally, my entire life, thought I was going to write, was young adult books. And then I published this trilogy and I started to write Winter Witches, and I found myself wanting to grow it up. And that's when a lot of things happened. I had outgrown author life as I was. I had gotten a lot underneath me that I was having a hard time keeping up with the workload. I was also, being a school counselor was just the transition out of the world of education for me. And so I was getting licensing to being a professional counselor. I was in a transition period again. And here I was in my author life for the very first time, also in a transitionary period where all of my backlist almost didn't fit my publishing platform. And I thought for a hot second about starting another pen name to publish all of my grown-up spicier books. I did not end up doing that. I went ahead and moved forward, and it honestly did take a little time for my marketing to adjust. I won't lie to you, because it's hard to market young adult books at the same time that you are marketing adult books. And along the way, what I have decided to do is to focus on where I see the long-term growth, which is in my adult books. So now, that brings us to now, Amy Prokopis, the paranormal romance / romantasy author. I really only heavily market my spicier books, my more adult books. My best-selling series is my Curse of Wings series, my vampire books. They always have been. As soon as that first book dropped, it always has done the best. And since then, I will say they're also older now, but my trilogy, my Guardians of the Sixth Gate trilogy, has done less than what it originally had, but I'm also not marketing it as heavily as I was. And my platform, everything I put online and everywhere I'm going is more grown up and adult. And so it also makes sense that some of my backlist is not doing as well. And so what I've learned out of that transitionary period, now that I am out of that period, I am in a career now as a professional counselor where I can cater my schedule a lot more freely. I have a whole lot more time for my author life because, let's face it, I'm working 2 full-time jobs essentially. And the more my author life grows, it's a lot easier to scale back right now in my day job as a therapist. So now that I am out of a kind of transitionary period and I feel like I have fully gained an understanding of my business, now that I'm at 10 books in, I am putting all of my focus and marketing efforts into where I am going, which is grown-up adult books. And so in some ways, yes, I've published 10 books, but in the world of like marketing them and my like promoting my backlist, it feels a little like I've written half of that, because half of it is like a past life, you know, like it doesn't fully match who I am now. So yes, I have published 10 books, but all in all, as far as Amy Prokopis, the paranormal author, romantasy writer, I haven't written 10 that fit that. So it's really strange to say. So yes, I have published 10 books, and I've learned a lot through the process. And that's it. I feel like this was a super, super long video, hopefully not too long. I hope it was interesting, because reflecting, I don't know, this week I've been really reflective, and it's just, I can't believe I've published 10 books. I can't believe I've published 10 books because I'm so focused on the future and all of the books I want to publish and I have planned to publish. So here is to 10 books and to 10 more, because I think I have that many ideas. Thanks for following along. Check out the links down below. Become a free Patreon member to get exclusive weekly updates. I post a Wednesday writing update every single week where I tell you how I'm doing, everything I'm working on, and it's the only place you get that much in depth. So become a free member there on Patreon. Consider becoming a $5 member, because you get live streams, other content, really fun things behind the scenes, and you'll get included in my ARC team automatically. It's a really fun place. My social media is always linked below as well. And yes, thank you guys so much for watching to the end of this video. Read books, be kind. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.